Joseph wiped the sweat from his brow, squinting at the ancient starship's exposed circuitry. The hangar's harsh lights cast long shadows across the vessel's pitted hull. He reached for his sonic screwdriver, muttering under his breath, "Come on, you piece of junk. Work with me here." As he adjusted a frayed wire, a spark leapt from the panel. Joseph jerked back, dropping his tool with a clatter. "Damn it!" He shook his singed hand, scowling at the ship. "Why does this always happen to me?" A chuckle echoed from behind him. "Having trouble there, Joe?" Joseph turned to see his co-worker, Mike, leaning against a nearby workbench. "Just the usual," Joseph replied, forcing a grin. "This ship's got it out for me, I swear." Mike shook his head. "I don't know how you do it, man. It's like you're a magnet for weird." Joseph shrugged, retrieving his fallen screwdriver. "Story of my life." He turned back to the open panel, determined to finish the job. As he reached in to reconnect the wire, his elbow brushed against an odd, crystalline protrusion. A low hum filled the air, and the crystal began to glow with an eerie blue light. Mike, you seen this?" Joseph called out, backing away slowly. But Mike was already halfway across the hangar, eyes wide. "I'm not paid enough for this, Joe. You're on your own." The humming intensified, and Joseph felt the hairs on his arm stand on end. The air in front of the ship seemed to ripple and twist like heat waves on asphalt. Then, with a thunderous crack, a swirling vortex of energy burst into existence. Joseph stumbled backward, shielding his eyes from the blinding light. When he lowered his arm, he found himself face to face with the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. She stood before him, panting heavily, her cerulean skin glistening with sweat. Her eyes, a mesmerizing shade of violet, darted around the hangar before locking onto Joseph's stunned face. "Where am I?" she demanded, her voice melodic despite the urgency in her tone. Joseph blinked, struggling to find his voice. Earth. New Chicago Spaceport, to be exact." The woman's eyes widened. "Earth? But that's impossible. It's in the restricted zone." Before Joseph could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the hangar. Red lights flashed, bathing everything in an ominous glow. Joseph muttered a curse under his breath. He glanced at the mysterious woman, then at the closing bay doors. Making a split-second decision, he grabbed her hand. "Come on, we've got to get out of here." To his surprise, she didn't resist. They sprinted across the hangar floor, ducking between ships and equipment. Joseph led her to a small maintenance hatch, praying it hadn't been sealed. As they reached the hatch, heavy footsteps echoed behind them. Joseph risked a glance back and saw several armed security officers storming into the hangar. "Halt!" one of them shouted. "Stop right there!" Joseph yanked the hatch open. "Ladies first!" he said, gesturing for the woman to enter. She slipped inside without hesitation, and Joseph followed, pulling the hatch shut behind them. They crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel, the sound of pursuit growing fainter. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a deserted alleyway behind the spaceport. Joseph leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "I think we lost them." The woman stood alert, her eyes scanning their surroundings. "For now," she said grimly, "but they won't stop looking." Joseph studied her, taking in her otherworldly beauty and the strange, form-fitting suit she wore. "Who are you?" he asked. "And who's after you?" She met his gaze, her expression a mix of weariness and curiosity. "My name is Ist, and if I told you who was after me, you'd wish you'd never asked." Joseph couldn't help but grin. "Try me. I've had a pretty weird day already." Ist's lips twitched in the ghost of a smile. "Very well. I'm being pursued by Zorg, the most powerful and ruthless tyrant in the known galaxy." Joseph's grin faltered. "Okay, yeah, that's pretty heavy." Ist's eyes softened. "I'm sorry to have involved you in this. You should go. Forget you ever saw me. It's not safe." "Whoa, hold on," Joseph interrupted. "I'm not just going to abandon you. Besides, I'm probably in trouble with security anyway. He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly feeling self-conscious. Look, I've got a place nearby. It's not much, but it's safe. You can lay low there while we figure things out. Ist studied him for a long moment, her violet eyes seeming to pierce his soul. Finally, she nodded. Thank you. You're either very brave or very foolish. Joseph chuckled. Probably a bit of both. I'm Joseph, by the way. As they made their way through the back streets of New Chicago, Joseph couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed irrevocably, and strangely, he was okay with that. They reached Joseph's small apartment without incident. As he keyed in the access code, he turned to Ist. It's not much, but make yourself at home. The door slid open, revealing a cluttered but cozy living space. Ist stepped inside, her eyes roaming over the eclectic mix of Earth artifacts and salvaged alien tech. This is fascinating, she murmured, running her fingers along the spine of a battered paper book. Joseph felt a surge of pride. Thanks. I've always been interested in old Earth culture. Not many people appreciate it these days. Ist turned to him, a genuine smile lighting up her face. It's wonderful. You have a unique perspective, Joseph. He felt his cheeks warm at the compliment. So, can I get you anything? Water? Food? Ist nodded gratefully. Water would be appreciated. As Joseph moved to the small kitchenette, Ist settled onto the worn couch. He returned with 2 glasses, handing one to her before sitting in a nearby chair. So, he began, want to tell me how you ended up bursting through a portal in my hangar? Ist took a long sip of water before answering. It's a long story, but the short version is that I was Zorg's property. Her voice hardened on the last word. I served as his personal bodyguard and assassin for years, but I couldn't stomach his cruelty any longer. I stole an experimental teleportation device and fled. Joseph leaned forward, captivated. That's incredible. But why Earth? You said it was restricted. Ist nodded. It is. Earth has been quarantined by the Galactic Alliance for centuries. She sighed. I didn't actually expect the device to work. It was supposed to be a suicide mission. Well, I'm glad it did work, Joseph said softly. Their eyes met, and for a moment the air seemed charged with electricity. Ist broke the gaze first, looking down at her hands. Joseph, I can't stay here. Zorg will tear this planet apart looking for me. I've already put you in danger. Joseph set his glass down firmly. Hey, I'm tougher than I look. Besides, where else are you going to go? Before Ist could respond, a low rumble shook the apartment. They rushed to the window, peering out at the night sky. A massive ship loomed over the city, its hull gleaming menacingly in the moonlight. No, Ist whispered, her face pale. He's here. How did he find me so quickly? Joseph's mind raced. We need to move now. They grabbed what supplies they could and rushed out of the apartment. As they reached the street, a piercing siren cut through the air. A holographic image of a terrifying alien face appeared in the sky above them. Citizens of Earth, the face boomed, its voice dripping with malice. I am Lord Zorg. You harbor a fugitive of the highest order. Return her to me, and your pathetic planet will be spared. Resist, and you will face annihilation. Panic erupted in the streets. People ran in all directions, screaming and shoving. Joseph grabbed Ist's hand, pulling her through the chaos. This way, he shouted over the din. I know a place we can hide. As they ran, Joseph noticed a strange energy coursing through his body. The world seemed to slow around him, and he found himself moving with inhuman speed and agility. Ist stared at him in amazement as they ducked into an abandoned building. Joseph, how are you doing that? He looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers. I don't know. This has never happened before. Ist's eyes widened. Incredible. Those abilities, they're reminiscent of the legendary warriors of the Galactic Alliance. But that's impossible. Unless... Before she could finish her thought, the wall behind them exploded inward. Through the dust and debris stepped two imposing figures in sleek black armor. "Well, well," one of them growled. "What do we have here?" Joseph stepped in front of Ist, his body tensed for a fight he knew he couldn't win. But as the agents advanced, that strange energy surged within him once more. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. Joseph moved with lightning speed, dodging the first agent's attack and landing a powerful blow to his midsection. The agent flew backward, crashing through the opposite wall. The second agent raised a weapon, but Joseph was already there. He wrenched the gun from the alien's grasp and tossed it aside. With a swift kick, he sent the agent sprawling. As quickly as it had come, the surge of power faded. Joseph staggered, suddenly exhausted. Ist caught him before he could fall. "Joseph," she said, her voice filled with awe, "do you have any idea what you just did?" He shook his head, still trying to process the impossible feat he'd just performed. "No idea. But I have a feeling things are about to get a lot more complicated." Ist helped him to his feet, her touch sending a shiver down his spine. "We need to go. There will be more coming." As they fled into the night, Joseph couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger than either of them could imagine. Whatever was happening to him, whatever forces were at play, one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. Joseph's heart pounded as he and Ist raced through the shadowy alleys of New Chicago. The distant wail of sirens and the ominous hum of Zorg's ship overhead drove them forward. "We need to get off-world," Ist panted, her violet eyes scanning the skyline. "Do you know anyone with a ship?" Joseph thought of old Sam, a grizzled veteran who ran a salvage yard on the outskirts of the city. "Maybe, but he's not exactly the trusting type." They ducked into a dimly lit transit station, blending with the panicked crowd as they boarded a maglev headed for the city limits. Joseph caught sight of their reflection in the window, Ist's cerulean skin standing out starkly against the sea of human faces. "Here," he said, shrugging off his jacket and draping it over her shoulders. "Keep your head down." Ist nodded gratefully, pulling the hood up to obscure her features. As the train lurched into motion, she leaned close to whisper, "Joseph, what happened back there? It shouldn't be possible. Not for a human." He met her gaze, seeing a mix of wonder and concern. "Trust me, I'm just as confused as you are, but right now, we need to focus on getting somewhere safe." The journey to old Sam's yard passed in tense silence. As they approached the electrified fence surrounding the property, Joseph's enhanced senses tingled with warning. "Something's not right," he murmured. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a barrage of energy blasts erupted from the darkness. Joseph reacted on instinct, grabbing Ist and diving behind a rusted shuttle hull. Time seemed to slow again as he surveyed their surroundings, picking out the muzzle flashes of their attackers. "Stay here," he ordered, surprising himself with the authority in his voice. Before Ist could protest, Joseph was moving. He darted between piles of scrap metal, his body flowing like water around the energy bolts. In a matter of seconds, he disarmed 3 of Zorg's agents, leaving them unconscious in his wake. As the last attacker fell, a gruff voice called out from the shadows. "Well, I'll be damned. You've got some moves, kid." Old Sam emerged from a hidden bunker, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on Joseph. "Though I got to say, you picked a hell of a time for a social call." Joseph exhaled slowly, the adrenaline fading. "Sam, we need your help. It's complicated." The old man snorted. "Ain't it always with you?" His gaze shifted to Ist as she approached cautiously. "And who's your colorful friend?" After a tense explanation and some reluctant negotiation, Sam agreed to help them leave Earth. As he prepped an ancient but serviceable smuggling vessel, Joseph pulled Ist aside. Listen, he said, his voice low. Before we go any further, I need to know everything. Who exactly is Zorg, and why does he want you so badly? Ist's eyes darkened. Zorg is a monster. He rules over half the known galaxy with an iron fist. Entire civilizations have fallen to his armies. She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. I was his most prized possession, not just a slave, but his personal assassin and bodyguard. Joseph's mind reeled at the implications. But how? Why you? I possess certain abilities, Ist explained. Enhanced strength, reflexes, a limited form of precognition. Zorg's scientists experimented on me for years, trying to unlock the secrets of my DNA. Her fists clenched at the memory. I was a weapon, nothing more. Joseph reached out, hesitating before gently placing a hand on her arm. You're not a weapon, Ist. You're a person. And I swear, I'll do whatever it takes to keep you free. The moment was interrupted by Sam's gruff voice. Ship's ready. But you two better have a destination in mind, 'cause I ain't flying into Zorg territory blind. As they boarded the ship, Joseph's thoughts turned to his mysterious past. Actually, he said slowly, I think I know where we need to go. Sam, have you ever heard of someone named Arara Chen? The old man's cybernetic eye whirred rapidly. Arara Chen? Now that's a name I haven't heard in years. She was a brilliant scientist, worked on some top-secret alliance project, disappeared about 25 years ago. He eyed Joseph suspiciously. What's your interest in her? Joseph took a deep breath. I think she might be my mother. The revelation sent shockwaves through the small group. As Sam plotted a course for the last known location of Arara Chen, Joseph and Ist retreated to the ship's cramped living quarters. If Arara Chen is truly your mother, Ist mused, it could explain your sudden manifestation of abilities. But your father? Joseph nodded, the pieces starting to fall into place. Must have been someone pretty special, too. Over the next few days, as they traveled deeper into uncharted space, Ist began training Joseph to control his newfound powers. The ship's cargo hold became their makeshift dojo, filled with the sounds of combat and the crackle of energy. Focus, Ist instructed, circling him as he struggled to maintain a force field. The power doesn't come from your body but from your mind. Visualize it, shape it with your will. Sweat beaded on Joseph's brow as he strained to hold the shimmering barrier. Suddenly, it expanded outward, knocking Ist off her feet. He rushed to help her up, apologies tumbling from his lips. To his surprise, she laughed. Excellent. You're learning faster than I ever did. As they caught their breath, Joseph couldn't help but notice the way Ist's eyes sparkled when she smiled. He cleared his throat, pushing the distracting thoughts aside. So, how did you learn to control your abilities? Ist's expression darkened. Zorg's methods were less pleasant, but that's in the past now. She placed a hand on his shoulder, sending a jolt of electricity through him that had nothing to do with his powers. You have a gift, Joseph, and together we'll make sure it's used for good. Their moment was interrupted by Sam's voice over the intercom. Hate to break up the training montage, kids, but we've got company. Looks like Zorg's goons found us. Joseph and Ist raced to the cockpit, where Sam was frantically manipulating the ship's controls. Through the view screen, they could see 3 sleek fighters rapidly approaching. Can we outrun them? Joseph asked, already knowing the answer. Sam shook his head grimly. Not a chance. This old girl's got heart, but she ain't built for speed. Ist's eyes narrowed as she studied the enemy formation. Their shields have a weak point near the aft thrusters. If we could hit them there... On it, Joseph said, sliding into the gunner seat. As he gripped the controls, time seemed to slow once again. He could see the minute adjustments in the enemy ship's trajectories, could almost predict where they would be before they moved. With uncanny precision, Joseph fired 3 rapid shots. Each one found its mark, disabling the pursuing fighters in quick succession. Sam let out a low whistle. "I'll be damned, kid! Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Joseph stared at his hands in disbelief. I didn't. It just happened." As the adrenaline faded, exhaustion hit Joseph like a physical blow. He slumped in his seat, his vision blurring. Ist was at his side in an instant, her cool hand on his forehead. "He's burning up," she said, concern evident in her voice. "Using his abilities like that without proper training is taking a toll on his body." Sam cursed under his breath. "We're still days away from our destination. Can he hold out that long?" Ist's jaw set with determination. "He has to. I'll do everything I can to help him stabilize his powers. But we need answers." She turned to Sam. "Push the engines as hard as you can. We need to find Arara Chen." As Joseph drifted in and out of consciousness over the next few days, he caught glimpses of Ist at his bedside, her melodic voice guiding him through meditation techniques. In his fevered state, the line between reality and dreams blurred. He saw flashes of a past he couldn't remember. A woman with kind eyes and a brilliant mind. A man in an Alliance uniform with a presence that commanded respect. And always at the edges of these visions, a looming darkness that threatened to consume everything. When Joseph finally regained full consciousness, they had arrived at their destination, a remote research outpost on the fringes of known space. As they disembarked, Sam hung back. "This is as far as I go, kids," he said gruffly. "Got a feeling whatever you find in there is above my pay grade." Joseph clasped the old man's hand. "Thank you, Sam, for everything." As they approached the facility's entrance, Joseph felt a strange pull, as if something inside was calling to him. The doors slid open with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit laboratory filled with advanced technology. And there, in the center of the room, stood a woman whose face Joseph knew instinctively, though he'd never seen it before. "Mom," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. Arara Chen turned, her eyes widening in recognition and disbelief. "Joseph, is it really you?" As mother and son embraced for the first time in 25 years, Ist stood back, a bittersweet smile on her face. But their reunion was cut short by the blaring of alarms. Arara's expression hardened. "He's found us. Zorg, we don't have much time." She turned to Joseph, gripping his shoulders. "There's so much I need to tell you. About your father, about your heritage, but right now, we need to focus on unlocking your full potential." Joseph nodded, newfound determination in his eyes. "I'm ready. Whatever it takes to stop Zorg and protect the people I care about." As Arara led them deeper into the facility, towards a chamber that hummed with unknown energy, Joseph caught Ist's gaze. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The chamber's hum intensified as Joseph stepped onto a glowing platform. Arara's fingers danced over holographic controls, her face etched with concentration. "This device will unlock your latent abilities," she explained, her voice tight. "But the process is dangerous. Your father, he didn't survive it." Joseph's heart raced, but he nodded resolutely. "I have to try. For everyone Zorg has hurt. For Ist." Their eyes met, and Ist stepped forward, clasping his hand. "I'll be right here," she promised. Energy surged through Joseph's body, every nerve aflame. He gritted his teeth, fighting to stay conscious as visions flooded his mind. Star maps, alien languages, combat techniques, and his father's proud face. Finally, the energy subsided, and Joseph collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. Arara rushed to his side. "Joseph, can you hear me? Did it work?" Slowly, Joseph stood, feeling a newfound strength and clarity. "Yes, it worked. I can feel it. All of it." Ist's eyes sparkled with relief and pride. "You did it, Joseph!" Before they could celebrate, Alarms blared throughout the facility. They rushed to the window and saw Zorg's massive ship descending, its weapons ready. Arara turned to them. "We don't have much time. Joseph, with your abilities, you have the power to stop Zorg, but be careful. He's dangerous." Joseph nodded. "I understand. We'll stop him together." They armed themselves with advanced technology and weapons from the facility. As they exited, they faced Zorg's elite soldiers. Joseph stepped forward, his eyes glowing with the same eerie light as the chamber. "Stand down," he commanded. The soldiers hesitated, but Ist quickly disarmed them, leaving them incapacitated. Finally, they reached Zorg himself. The tyrant's eyes burned with malice. "So the prodigal son returns. Do you really think you can stop me?" Joseph's resolve hardened. "I'm not afraid of you, Zorg. This ends now." The battle was fierce and intense, energy crackling through the air. Despite Zorg's overwhelming power, Joseph's training and newfound abilities allowed him to hold his own. With Ist and Arara fighting by his side, they pushed forward. With a final surge of energy, Joseph landed a powerful blow that sent Zorg crashing to the ground. The tyrant lay defeated. "You cannot win," Zorg gasped. "There will always be another to take my place." "Maybe," Joseph said, "but not today." With Zorg defeated, his forces surrendered. The galaxy, inspired by Joseph's bravery, began to rise against Zorg's regime. Back on Earth, Joseph, Ist, and Arara stood together, watching as the last of Zorg's ships retreated into space. Joseph turned to Ist, a smile on his face. "We did it. Together." "Yes," Ist replied, "together." Arara placed a hand on Joseph's shoulder. "I'm so proud of you, Joseph. Your father would be, too." Joseph took a deep breath, feeling a sense of fulfillment. "Thank you, Mom. And thank you, Ist. I couldn't have done it without you." As they stood there, looking out at the horizon, Joseph knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. United by their shared purpose and unbreakable bond, they were ready to forge a new path in the galaxy, one of hope, courage, and endless possibilities. Subscribe to watch more amazing sci-fi stories.